Hey there. Let's talk about validation for a moment. How addictive it could be, and how this human want affects our lives in the long term. The human desire for validation is a powerful force that shapes behavior, self-worth, and even relationships. Like a drug, the need for external approval can become an all-consuming obsession, driving individuals to seek adulation and recognition no matter the cost. At first, a simple compliment or acknowledgement may feel like a boost. Much like the initial high of a narcotic, over time, the craving for validation intensifies, requiring more frequent and stronger doses to achieve the same sense of fulfillment. This destructive cycle can lead to emotional dependency, self-doubt, and a diminished sense of identity, as individuals begin to rely on the approval of others to feel validated and whole. Just as substance addiction takes a toll on the body and mind, the addiction to external validation can corrode one's mental health, sense of autonomy, and the long-term happiness. In this video, we would be looking at the addictive and the destructive nature of validation, where the need for validation comes from, the dangers of validation dependency, how this relates to social media usage, and how it leads to self-destructive habits. The desire for validation is rooted in both biological and psychological factors. Evolutionarily, humans are social creatures, and the need for approval from others can be traced to our survival instincts. In a chaotic environment, being accepted by a group was vital for protection, resources, and social cooperation. As a result, the brain developed mechanisms that rewarded social connection and approval, reinforcing behaviors that led to group acceptance, no matter how detrimental these behaviors could be to the individual. Psychologically, the desire for validation is closely tied to self-esteem. From a young age, individuals seek approval from parents, caregivers, peers, and society to feel valued and affirmed. Positive feedback builds self-confidence, while lack of validation or rejection can lead to feelings of inadequacy and insecurity. As people grow older, this need for external validation may become more ingrained with social media and modern societal pressures, amplifying its significance. Social comparison theory suggests that people often measure their worth by comparing themselves to others, further fueling the need for validation. In some cases, childhood experiences such as neglect or excessive criticism can exacerbate this need. The lack of consistent positive reinforcement may lead to an ongoing search for approval to fill the emotional voids and affirm one's sense of self-worth. Over time, this desire can evolve into an addictive cycle, where external validation becomes a primary source of self-definition and affirmation. Social media platforms are meticulously designed to keep users hooked on the need for validation, tapping into the brain's reward system. Features like likes, comments, and shares provide immediate feedback, offering a quick rush of dopamine, the brain's feel-good chemical, whenever we receive positive reinforcement. This instant gratification creates a cycle where the users seek more approval to maintain that emotional high. The algorithms behind these platforms further fuel this addiction by prioritizing content that generates the most engagement, encouraging people to post more frequently, and in ways that maximize their chances of receiving validation. Over time, this constant cycle of posting, waiting for approval, and seeking recognition can foster dependency, with individuals feeling increasingly anxious or inadequate when validation is lacking. Social media's emphasis on external affirmation can shift one's sense of self-worth away from internal values and lead to a dangerous reliance on others for validation. The rise of social media has created a generation increasingly addicted to likes, comments, and shares as a form of validation. A very sad example would be that of the YouTuber known as Etika, also known as Desmond Amofa, a popular YouTube personality who took his own life as a result of the mental health struggles he faced due to the disapproval he felt by being constantly judged online. The constant pressure to create the perfect image or maintain a certain public persona has led to emotional exhaustion, depression, and anxiety for many. Some influencers have reported experiencing an identity crisis when the validation they receive online doesn't translate to fulfillment in their personal lives, creating a sense of emptiness and alienation. I've lived an incredible life. I did so many things for many people, but social media became a drug. These are the final words of Etika in his last upload, now deleted by YouTube, before he took his own life. This should be an eye-opener to thinking people. Validation dependency takes on a very insidious form when you have people in groups, and with a basic understanding of group psychopathy, most especially when just one or more individuals possess dominant dark triad traits and how such individuals can drastically change group dynamics for the worse. This could be a workplace environment, friend groups, a neighborhood, or any social circle that requires a given number of people. Being stuck within such groups and being dependent on their approval could lead to severe forms of conformity and erosion of individuality. The stereotypical personality of the yes-men comes to mind: over-reliance on external approval, fear of rejection, suppression of authentic desires, social conformity over personal expression, loss of authentic relationships as the person suppresses their own beliefs, desires, and critical thinking in favor of group acceptance. When abuse takes place within such social settings, either collective abuse or one instigated by high-conflict Machiavellian manipulators, our addiction to validation suppresses our moral instincts to protect and prevent abuse. It might even compel us to participate, seek justifications for abusers, and cover their tracks to prevent the consequences or not to be rejected by the majority. Validation addiction could cause a crippling indecisiveness, needing group approval even in situations where group opinion shouldn't even figure in the slightest. Some individuals in this state of mind experience stagnation, as such environments prioritize keeping people in check and never to exceed above the majority, most especially to never be a threat to the dark triad individual who might be at the top of the dominance hierarchy if one exists. Addiction to validation makes individuals easier to manipulate because their self-worth depends on external approval. Manipulators exploit this by offering or withholding validation to gain control, creating dependency and amplifying insecurities. This leads to a fear of rejection, reduced critical thinking, and an overwhelming desire to please. Breaking free requires self-awareness, building internal validation, setting boundaries, and seeking support to reclaim autonomy. I juxtaposed validation addiction to drug addiction, and to my understanding, this is what makes validation dependency more dangerous, is that it leads to other forms of addiction, most dangerously, drug addiction. With a dependency on group validation, a loss of individuality, and the yes-manification of a person, rejecting addictive substances within group dynamics could be extremely difficult or impossible, and thus it could be understood that validation is the ultimate gateway drug. Drug addictions isn't the only form of addictions that could result from validation dependency. Using the same logic, one can see how this could translate to sex addiction, an addiction to drama, and dangerous thrill-seeking behavior, all for the approval of others. Equating validation addiction with drug addiction might seem like an exaggeration meant to create a buzz. Here are compelling comparisons that sheds more light to how equally dangerous and similar both can be. Dependency on external rewards. Both forms of addiction create a dependency on something external rather than fostering internal resilience or self-worth. Tolerance development. Over time, the same amount of validation and drug may feel less fulfilling, leading to an increased need for more frequent or intense recognition. Both addictions escalate over time as the original high diminishes. Negative impact on mental health. Both create a cycle of emotional instability, with the addict feeling worse without their fix. Anxiety, low self-esteem, and feelings of inadequacy when validation is absent is a result of this. Withdrawal symptoms. Both types of withdrawal can be highly distressing and difficult to overcome, leading to depression, anxiety, cravings, aggression, or seeking alternatives that could be more dangerous. Both validation addiction and drug addictions reflect how external stimuli can hijack our natural reward systems and create cycles of dependency. While the substances or stimuli differ, the psychological mechanisms, impacts, and recovery processes share significant similarities. Addressing the root causes, fostering healthy coping strategies, and seeking support are essential for overcoming both types of addiction. The ventral striatum. This region is involved in the brain's reward system and is responsible for processing pleasure and reinforcement. It is often activated when individuals receive positive feedback or validation. Drugs significantly affect the ventral striatum, a key region in the brain's reward system, by altering the release and reuptake of neurotransmitters, particularly dopamine. The ventral striatum, which includes areas like the nucleus accumbens, is responsible for processing rewards, pleasure, motivation, and reinforcement. The ventral stratum plays a crucial role in reinforcing behaviors that feel rewarding. When drugs increase dopamine in this region, they make the drug use feel highly rewarding, which strengthens the desire to repeat the behavior, that is, taking the drug again. This process is central to the development of an addiction. The prefrontal cortex, specifically the medial prefrontal cortex, MPFC for short, is implicated in self-reflection, social cognition, and understanding others' perspectives. When validation affirms one's sense of self or belonging, the MPFC is likely engaged. The prefrontal cortex is responsible for decision-making, impulse control, and higher cognitive functions. Drugs that affect this area can impair judgment, reduce impulse control, and increase the likelihood of engaging in addictive behaviors. Chronic drug use can alter the functioning of the PFC, contributing to the compulsive nature of addiction. The amygdala. This area plays a role in processing emotions, particularly fear and reward. Validation may reduce the amygdala's stress-related activity while boosting positive emotional responses. This part of the brain is primarily involved in processing emotions, particularly fear and pleasure. Drugs like alcohol or marijuana can influence the amygdala, contributing to the emotional and mood-altering effects of the drug. As we all know, low self-esteem can significantly increase vulnerability to validation addiction because it often drives individuals to seek worth and identity from external sources, despite the facade of grandiosity some of us might have acquired as we age. A healthy level of self-worth acts as a protective barrier against the psychological harms of validation. When people have a strong sense of self-worth that is rooted in education-based values, abilities, and personal identity, rather than in external approval, they are less vulnerable to the emotional highs and lows of external feedback. A healthy sense of self allows individuals to interpret praises, condemnation, being shunned, likes, comments, and follow accounts as temporary signals or sometimes manipulative gestures, rather than as definite measures of one's actual value. This inner confidence reduces the compulsion to constantly seek reassurance from others, making it easier to disengage from the endless cycle of checking and comparing. By relying on internal validation, such as acknowledging personal growth, setting meaningful goals, and celebrating actual achievements, a person can maintain emotional stability even when social media engagement declines or when isolated and rejected by the majority. In this way, self-esteem not only helps to protect against the anxiety, depression, and burnout linked to validation addiction, but also promotes a more grounded and fulfilling sense of identity. Regardless of the financial strain, emotional exhaustion, and profound sense of helplessness it may cause, validation addiction remains exceptionally difficult to overcome, as the feedback affects parts of our brains that we have absolutely no control over. A healthy sense of self offers a critical safeguard to these dangers. By grounding one's sense of value in internal measures, rather than fluctuating external responses, individuals can reduce their dependence on transient external affirmations. Addressing the underlying issues of self-esteem is therefore not merely a complementary strategy, but an essential step in breaking free from the persistent grip of validation addiction and safeguarding long-term psychological well-being.